The original OG with Dr. Cheryl Dossett is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for your support.
Greetings, my name is Cheryl Dawson and this is My Truth. I come to you today to share my vision for creating a new initiative which embraces the unique talents, strengths, and abilities of a segment of the population which is often overlooked. What I'm referring to are members of the African American or Black community in China. China is a vast land that presents vast opportunities for big thinkers. And as an African American female and a big thinker, I embrace the unknown. I look at China as an opportunity to leverage my talents and abilities because there's enough here in terms of resources to help you create a new life for yourself. Good morning and welcome to this segment of the original OG. I am Dr. Dossett, Overseas Game Changers. You know, since I've been doing this program, there has been a pattern that has emerged that many of the expats that have been interviewed started out with their travel journeys as educators, but then migrated into entrepreneurship. Today, we have Adrienne Waller, who has answered the call to be a game changer, a reformist in education, and has now been invited and taken up a position in, of course, the Cayman Islands. So this beautiful young lady and sister is an educator at heart, but she embodies education administration. For me, I know that education is an area you must be called to. It is something that comes to you and compels you to take the lead to deal with the challenges. Don't get impressed by the fact that she's in the Cayman Islands. Let's look more deeply into the soul of this woman as to what inspired, motivated, and then compelled her to want to be at the table. She's not in the back office. She's at the table where decisions are made which impact and affect young people. So without further ado, I must, with the most grace, is to welcome Adrienne Waller. Adrienne, welcome to the Original OGs Talk Show. How are you doing today, dear?
I am fantastic, surviving storms and hurricanes. So I am doing so well, and I'm glad we are able to connect after quite an adjustment.
Yes. And so let me say this. If you listen to the cadence of her voice, and I know this for a fact, you can hear her voice has a spiritual undertone. Her voice is, you can tell by listening to her, she's supposed to lead. Her voice resonates being called by God. Let me just be candid. We're on Preach the Word. So I know that you're originally from Michigan and you're in the Cayman Islands, but your first experience with Cayman, you were met by the hurricane. Yes? Talk to us a little bit about the transition recruitment and then your first part of your settlement.
So I ended up here, and I tell people you never know what God has going on. So like I tell people, had I not lost my job in China, I wouldn't have my job in the Cayman. And that sounds crazy, right? You know, it's like, how does that happen? And so I had put my resume up on a job board and left it and forgot about it. And then more than 6 months after I had done that, I get this email like, hey, we'd like to talk to you about a position. I didn't look for them. I wasn't checking for them. I hadn't even logged into the system. actually I hadn't even updated my resume that what had changed. And so like by the time I got the job, they're like, hey, we need you to update and send us your updated resume. But they reached out and were like, we'd like to talk to you about this assistant principal job. And I was kind of like, I don't know, but I'll talk to you. And then 4 interviews later, mind you, this is a deep pool. So like I'm young in my educator career, and it was like 40 people who applied for this position. I didn't even go looking for it, and I beat out people who had more experience. And it was literally God was with me. And the whole time, because I wasn't looking, I said, I'm going to show up as all of me this entire interview process. So I had my hair out, big, pulled back. I said, I'm going to change my hair every interview because that's how I live my life. And I wanted them to see all of Black me. Like I asked questions about how are Black people, what are you doing in these spaces? Because that was important to me. I said, if this is for me, they're going to be able to meet me on all of these different things. And every step of the way they did. And I'm telling you, God's got you because God's got me, and that's what this job really has shown me. So by the time I got to China, I had already lived in Qatar for 3 years. And so backtrack, my expat journey actually started when I was 5. So my mom took us and moved to Germany. So I think it's always been I tell people it was in my blood. Like I was raised doing, that. And although we only did that for 2 years, anybody who's lived abroad knows once you've lived abroad, like grocery store, forum community, and all of those things, it doesn't leave you. Even if you don't do it again, that is with you. And so like very early, that was with me. And so then in college, I lived in South Africa for 3 years. So by the time I'm getting to China, this is stop number 4 on, living abroad. And my first one in like real, like frontward leadership. And I didn't want China. What actually happened, I don't think I've talked to anybody about this on air, is that I knew I deserved better than what my school in Qatar was giving me. And so I said, okay, this is not for me anymore. And I was late looking for admin jobs because this was March. In the international space, March for admin positions is like, you're not getting nothing. And if you do, the school is terrible. And I just stepped out on faith again and was like, but this is not it, and that was a whole story. So when I moved to China was kind of a last ditch, like, well, I guess, because I was like, I don't think they treat Black people well. So during that interview, I asked as well, like, so I know I'm Black. What's that going to be like? Mind you, I'm looking at a Taiwanese woman saying this. and I get to China and I'm in Shanghai. So I'm not in rural China. And the embrace that I got, the community that was there, the experience, I was torn. Like I was heartbroken when I lost that job because I had fallen in love with China. I had fallen in love with the community, the space, the everything about it, the food. And Shanghai is so special because you have century old next to modern, marvels. And so you have these two things literally like downtown, one building next to another, along with people who are trying to learn but don't know nothing because they've never seen people who look like me walking around with my big curly hair. They're like, who are you? But not who are you like, ooh, but like literally a curiosity. And I think China's often depicted as negative versus they don't know. They got over 1 billion people in one country who almost virtually kind of show up very similar. And so when you come in, very different, they're curious. And I never had the experience of the hate that I've gotten in the United States. I never got that while I was in China. Were people looking? Yeah, but I mean, shoot, they're like, what is this? I've never seen this, So I think a lot of times the bad rap of China is not one from people who've been to a multitude of places in China, because I do think rural China might be different. I'm in the biggest city in the world, like literally 25 million people in Shanghai. It's a lot of people, and most of them don't look like me.
They could be your cousins, though, and that's a story I'll say for another time. But
I've seen some of that, and that's been amazing.
Now, I do agree. Something I always wanted to talk about was this nosedive of emotions, for instance, leaving China. So I've been very candid and say that when I left China after almost 9 years, I went through a depression. I couldn't explain it, but that you actually presented the word that I was looking for. I was heartbroken, and no one understood why I was heartbroken. It was like, it's just China. I said, no, the people that were with me, that embraced me, they were extended family, some of them closer. After 9 years, you don't really feel like a foreigner. You feel like, Dorothy, there's no place home. And so during your period, your exodus, and then your respite, and then talk to you when you arrived in the Cayman Island. Give our viewers some of your first impressions when you land in a place that is incredibly beautiful at the outset. What were some of your impressions before we go deeper into your role, into you feel like your purpose on this island?
So I'll first address the China thing because I was definitely heartbroken, and it felt like part of my life was being ripped from me. I didn't even pack up my own stuff. Like I had somebody box up my life, you know. I'll say that again. Somebody boxed up my life, and I had to sort from a video screen what I would take and what I would leave. And I never got to in person say goodbye to people who had been with me through, this adjustment. Because, when you first move abroad, which will lead me into Cayman, it's tough. There's an adjustment period you go because everything is so different and you're negotiating so many different things. So for me, every time I land, it's a bit of awe, like, wow, I did it. Like I always tell myself every time I land, I did it. Like, because that alone is a big step. A lot of people some people viewing this may never do that. And so I celebrate myself every time I land, and I did that. Like I did that. And then I try to take in everything that is this new space being gifted to me, because I think it's a gift that's being shared with you, because they don't have to. Not all countries are open. Not all countries extend invitations. Not all countries will give you a visa. So I know it's a gift to be there. So I try to soak all of that in. And here was so special because they have a saying called Cayman kind. And when I tell you that's real, it's not one of the, you hear stuff and it's like, oh, they say that, and you get there, you're like, these people are not real. No. When I tell you Cayman kindness, when I couldn't get my money from my direct deposit, my realtor paid my deposit and my first month's rent. When the hurricane happened and I had nobody here, her brother came and picked me up and I slept at her house.
Jesus.
When I found out I had an extra day of quarantine, somebody's dropping me off a love offering, gift of like, you can make it through. You got this. It's been every step of the way. Like the guy who came to check to make sure I was staying in my place was like, here's my number. If you need me to go to the grocery store, I got you. Like that's a whole new level of like kindness. Like that's a new level of kindness. And you match that with the beauty. Like I look out my window and the green. So I told you I lived in Qatar for 3 years. So this green is a beautiful.
Well, my heart is so full because you are living and breathing and setting the example of this experience, which I have been trying to articulate to the world, that to be who you are on foreign soil is so important, and that people are waiting for you. They're waiting for me because they're hungry. That's the favor of God. And I don't take it lightly. God has allowed me to live, work, and travel in about 28 countries, and still growing and still counting. And I'm most thankful that you said yes. How many of us allow our fear of the unknown to block us and miss our blessings? God always sends destiny helpers, which you have eloquently articulated about the people that you've encountered in the Cayman Islands. I mean, when I listen to you, and I know that your journey has not been easy, but like the song says, his eyes on the sparrow. I know he watches me. So this is another topic I want to gauge right now. In terms of your faith, how are you able to celebrate and practice your faith? Or is it still a private matter as a result of COVID? Or when we have conversations like this, we can give honor where honor is due to God, who has opened doors for you, open doors for me. There's some of us in this lifetime, I believe that God calls us out of our territory. I believe it is a part of the work that he wants to do in the kingdom. But people don't understand. We don't have to wear it on our chest like a badge. I love God. Our actions speak for us. So, how are you able to blend and integrate your faith in your work, especially with young children?
So this is the first Christian country I've lived in. And I say that because the US is kind of like, we know, like, and everywhere else was either a Muslim country or kind of faith agnostic. And so being somewhere that very much centers itself on like faith has been different for me. Here it's interesting that although my school is like a faith agnostic school, there's a lot of like when people ask me, so I don't have a car right now, and living on island without a car, everybody thinks I'm crazy. And they're like, really? Well, how do you get to work? I say faith, God, like, and literally at work, these are my answers. Like, this is what I say without any apology. And like people kind of chuckle and they're like, no, really? I'm like, no, really. I'll wake up in the morning and I may not know how I'm getting to work. You know, I may not, or I think I'm getting there one way and something happens, but every day I'm at work on time or early. Every day I get home, I've gotten to the grocery store. Everything I've ever needed has been provided, and I still don't have a vehicle. And part of it was I went through that period of not really working, and so money was tight. And so I said, I don't want any more debt. Being abroad has blessed me with the opportunity to not be in debt, so I'm not going to get any new debt. So God will keep working on me till I can buy a car. Now, what does that look like for kids? That means showing up and being graceful with them. And we even had an issue day one where there was a girl who was really having a hard time adjusting into the new school setting. She doesn't speak English yet. She speaks French. You know, she's in kindergarten. It was hard. You know, the baby was hurting. And so having to push different people without calling anybody out, but having to push people and say that baby needs us, you know, to me, that's work walking in my purpose and saying, you know, and when people are like, well, I need you, I'm like, I'm here for both of y'all. Like, there's enough in this well for both of you. I'm here for her and I'm here for you. Like, and I'm going to keep showing up for both of you because that's important to me. And to me, that's my faith. Like, I ran from teaching. Like, I ran and said, oh, I'm going to go be a Children's Hospital CEO. And God kept tugging on me like, no, boo, that's not for you. And I even ran from administration. And it was actually a friend telling me, listen to what God has gifted you and what God has people telling you you should be doing. And that's how you know where to move. And it's changed. She doesn't know it, but it's really impacted so much of how I live my life now. Is like, okay, what has he just placed on my heart? Like when you say you can hear it in my voice, people can hear that in my voice at like 3, you know, like it's not a surprise to almost anybody who's been in my life that I'm in leadership. You know, it was a surprise that I wasn't sooner, you know, and that was me saying no, me not pushing forward through some of those obstacles and finally just leaning in and saying, okay, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
And I just thank you for that. So listening to you and understanding that you are starting to follow the impressions that God has put on your life. God has given me this theme, and I'm developing a whole course around in between, navigating the in between. So and I have to be obedient about this because I don't know where it's going to take me, but it has relevance. When we're dealing with the in-between jobs, how are you navigating that in between? Did you prepare for this position? What were some of the things that you did in order to hold on while we're waiting for God's deliverance and direction?
So it really takes me back to being in Qatar when I get there, and within the first couple of days, they're like, "Oh, our grade level needs a coordinator," and basically, I was pushed into it, and I was like, "Okay, well, I've done team lead," and the same thing happened in Detroit before I left. My team lead that was supposed to be there for grade one quit my first week on the job, and the next thing you know, everybody's like, and I'm like, okay. And so those two things happened. But then in Qatar, there was a vacancy that opened. And I remember going to the HR and saying, I want that job. And he said, but we didn't even post it internally. I said, I know, which is why I'm coming to you, because I want the job and I don't see the post. And he's like,
Go ahead, girl. Go ahead. That's what.
So then the HR wasn't, I don't know what it was, but he wasn't really feeling me. So somebody had told me at the beginning of the year, you're doing a lot for this school. The owner should know what you're doing. Start BCCing her, because I bet you there's somebody taking credit for the work that you're doing in meetings you're not at. So I started BCCing her. So I started that in like January. So now I'm BCCing her so that by the time April comes, she's seeing my work without ever seeing my work, right? And so I also BCC her when I apply to HR for the job. Little do I know, here God goes again, she then tells HR, give her an interview. Like it was nothing else. It wasn't, oh, review her resume. It was, that girl, give her an interview. Set that up immediately. That man acted quickly because, I mean, that's who pays your bills. You listen. And then they threw this roadblock like, well, we need you to lead a professional development across 3 schools before we give you the job. We need to see that. And I said, okay. I led that PD. The teachers are going to the principals to advocate for me. Hire her. We need her. She's the one who needs to be here. So I don't even know, and I don't remember if I ever had a full interview, because I think they thought I would get scared about having to go to these different schools and present to people. And all it did was, one, help me have more faith in me and like my capabilities, because I think I was still questioning that, like that imposter syndrome. And mind you, I still deal with it times now, but I kind of remind myself that's the imposter talking, and it's not like reality talking. I have to like self-talk. I have to look in the mirror, girl, you got this, you got this, and so that was kind of that journey. So was I preparing? Yes. Did I know I was? Maybe not. And so then ever since then, I've always looked at, where are the gaps? How can I fill them? And what are the opportunities? And how can I make this work for me? Because because you get in the international world and some of these schools are real raggedy. You can end up at a great school that will do all the amazingness. I know people who got first class flights at their schools. And I also know places where I was hoping to get my paycheck on time, and that's the gamut of schools. And I know people who went months without pay, because their school was, there. So there's this range. And I tell people, no matter where you are, know where you want to go and look at what spaces can allow you to do that. So they're like, well, this isn't paid. Sometimes you got to do some stuff that doesn't pay you to show your value, so that you know what you can do. So you can now monetize whatever it is. So I feel like I was constantly kind of doing those little things, figuring out where I can shine and how I could also help others to shine, because you look brighter when you have more lights around you, right? Like it doesn't look better in the dark with one light. It looks better in the light with a lot of lights. And so I don't need to be shining solo.
Yes. So we are running out of time, and I'm a little disappointed. This is not an hour show for guests such as this lady, her caliber. We haven't discussed so many variables that need to be addressed. I'm just humbled. I'm grateful for the vision for you. I want to talk about the impact of COVID and post-COVID for the children. That's another show. You are an incredible woman. You are blessed. You have been called for such a time as this. You will impact everywhere you touch your feet. You will not only lead with impact, but you will leave impact. You are a game changer. I love that young Black and brown girls will see you. God will put you on the world stage as a worldwide educator. He will put you on the world stage. There's so many stories that have yet to been told, so many of the scars that are still healing from your experiences. I understand that because I've walked that journey. You're a sister. I hope that we keep in touch. Whatever I can give you support and understanding the nuances of going abroad and the challenges. People are genuine and good people do exist. I know you have a clubhouse room.
So my Clubhouse Club is called Living Life Abroad, where we talk about all the different things that are about living life abroad, the successes and the struggles.
That's wonderful. I know I visited your clubhouse club a couple of times and I heard your story. And I'll be back because I want to lend support to you in any way that I can. You have inspired me to continue to dream big and bigger. When you think it's over, it's not over. God is just redirecting your path and putting you on the path that you were supposed to be on, divine destiny, providence, and I thank God for that. But she will be back to talk about more of her social entrepreneur efforts and check in and how she's doing. Sit at the hem of her garment and listen to the advice as we listen to her from on high. So once again, this is Dr. Dossett, the original OG overseas game changer with Adrienne Waller, who is just incredible, beautiful, talented. And I'm so grateful that God has had his hand on your life. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for your time and peace and blessings. Catch us next week. We'll probably bring her back in a couple of weeks, but catch us next week for this segment. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Thank you. Amen.
The original OG with Dr. Cheryl Dossett is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for your support.